So one of the big topics going on right now is Elon Musk purchasing Twitter. From what I understand, this deal is going through absolutely now. It was kind of shaky at first. I think there was a lot of issues, and it looked like it was not going to happen. I think they even went to court for some reason, but it looks like it's going to go through for sure. This is going to be pretty interesting because once he gains control of the company, he right now claims that he's going to allow people such as the former President Donald Trump, the what would you call him, podcaster, Alex Jones, and many other people who are typically considered on the far right to rejoin Twitter. I'm assuming he's going to do it. I don't know why he would lie about it or why he'd back out. I mean, from what I understand, Elon Musk is a little bit more right-leaning, so if anything, he'd be sympathetic to them. And he does claim to be a free speech absolutist. So, yeah, if this deal goes through, it'd be interesting that Donald Trump will get access to Twitter. I imagine he will use it. I know he has his own platform called Truth Social, which seems to really not, be popular, even though it was highly endorsed, possibly even started by the former President Donald Trump. And I think that shows just Twitter, for whatever reason, is just going to be, because it is what's referred to as the common grounds, is it? Public square. It has become the public square. So the idea of the public square is that prior to the modern age, the public square was literally like typically the area in the middle of a town or a city where people would gather and discuss things. They would discuss politics, current events. That's kind of how you did it back then. So the idea right now is that Twitter is that digital public square. It's where everyone goes to stay up to date on politics, entertainment, really anything. I think so. Elon Musk said he's gonna, allow all these people who've been banned off Twitter to come back in once he owns it. A lot of liberal people are angry about this, obviously, because they are not fans of Donald Trump, Alex Jones, and other right-wing people, and they feel that these people should not be allowed to type, speak on Twitter. And then there's some talk, I don't know if it's very serious, of the left-leaning people going to start a new social platform because they want to avoid Twitter. Because they believe, it'll be harmful. I don't think that's going to happen. And here's the reason why. When a lot of right-leaning people got kicked off of Twitter, there were a lot of new social network startups that started. I don't recall the names right now. Well, we just spoke about the Truth Social. That was one of them. But there's many others. Gab is one. Getter is another one. There's a handful of others, and none of them really gained significant traction. And think about that. These alternatives, such as Truth Social, Gab, Getter, etc., were supposed to be the right-leaning alternatives to Twitter, when a lot of prominent right-leaning people banned off Twitter. And yet, those alternatives never really amounted to any serious numbers. Never. I believe none of them are even anywhere near half the influence of Twitter. So, despite the right wing getting a lot of their top leaders getting banned off Twitter, they still stayed on Twitter. They obviously did not move in significant numbers to these alternatives, such as Truth Social, Gab, Getter, etc. So why would the left-leaning people leave Twitter when the threat to the left-leaning people is that people like Donald Trump will get to tweet, but the threat is not that left-leaning people like President Joe Biden would get banned, right? So, like, if the right-leaning people are not willing to move away from Twitter when their leaders are getting banned, why would the left-leaning people leave when their leaders are not going to get banned? It's just that they're going to have to see tweets from like Donald Trump, Alex Jones, etc. So I don't think any of these, if any left-leaning alternatives to Twitter do start out, I really don't think they're going to gain traction. Twitter, for right now, seems like it's going to be the dominant force. And of course, it probably won't last forever. I mean, look at Facebook. Facebook was the big thing, and then it's slowly seems to be fading away. I remember MySpace. There was a thing called MySpace that was an earlier version of Facebook, and that was the big thing, but that faded away. So things always fade away, but I don't think they fade away because people move away for political reasons. They fade away maybe mostly just better alternatives come up, just better UIs, UIs means like just how the website and the app actually works. It's just more user-friendly. So I am curious to see what Twitter's going to be like if Elon Musk does allow all these right-leaning people come back. It should be interesting. If anything, Twitter's going to be more exciting, right? If anything, Twitter's going to be more exciting. Another thing I've noticed lately, and this is probably not technically politics, but something I did kind of notice is this more talk about the African American community having almost like this this burden, this handicap almost placed on them from birth. What I mean is, so ever since I was young, and probably even before I was born, the narrative was that the black community is suffering greatly, economically, being in prison, violence in the community because of racism, right? So we've all heard this before, because of racism. It seems to be expanding beyond just blaming racism as in the present racism. It's going back to what they refer to as systematic racism and historical racism. Just this idea that it's always been like this, and that it was always going to let me take back. It's always been like this, and it's even if racism ended today, even if we can just like wipe it clean, they would still suffer because they have traumatic. I'm not sure if it was called like DNA trauma. Somebody messaged me if you know what I'm talking about, but it's kind of like the idea of because their ancestors went through so much trauma, it got passed down like in their DNA, like in their genes. And I think there's been some interesting scientific studies, I think probably with mice, because everything's done with mice, where they will put a certain generation of mice under just some insane situations. And the claim is, even when these mice who've been through like really tough times, when they give birth, even if that next generation is not put into that situation, the traumatic situation, that the next generation still has lingering effects, so to speak. I think it is called like DNA trauma, but I've seen this more spoken of in the black and white situation. So I think the narrative is switching a little bit from just black people suffer from racism today to black people are just like, to their core, going to suffer because of what their ancestors went through. It's like this stress that was passed down from generation to generation. And there was this show which is kind of like The View. The View is when several liberal women get together and talk about politics and current events. There is one that's similar, except it's all African American women. And I saw this clip in this show where the African American women were talking about how they cannot lose weight because of racism. So the one host said, when a black and a white female go through the exact same diet routine, exact same, the black lady will lose less weight, so have less results than the white lady. And she attributed this difference because of, again, it's that kind of the genetic, the DNA, the stress that they inherited. So it's not just current racism, but it's just something they inherited. They're under that stress that their ancestors went through. And I just thought that was very interesting, because I've been hearing little bits of this here and there. And mostly it was from like smaller YouTube channels, but to see it coming out more on the mainstream, I think that's going to be the new go-to. I think it's not just going to be about, black people suffer from racism like today because of racist white people. I think they're going to start saying, no matter what, black people are just born with a handicap because of what their ancestors went through. That trauma, that shock of slavery and Jim Crow just funneled down from generation to generation. And I think this is going to ultimately lead to reparations. The talk of reparations has picked up. It's still not mainstream, but it's picking up. And I want to say, is it California that is looking at bills into this? And, it's probably not going to pass now in 2022. But they're talking about it. It's on the table. These things, these big cultural shifts don't just happen, overnight, right? It get like what's it called? Marijuana legalization. It didn't just happen overnight. They kept pushing and pushing, and bills failed, and they kept pushing. What else? Gay marriage. They kept pushing, and it failed, and it happened. I think reparation. I think they're gonna keep pushing it. I think it's gonna happen. It's gonna be very interesting. African Americans in America are gonna receive reparations, probably in the form of just money deposited to their account. I think that's it. I laugh because I remember like 20 years ago we would discuss this as like teenagers. Almost like it was kind of like a joke, to be honest. Yeah, we're just joking around, right? And like there's this comedian Dave Chappelle. He would do skits about it too. And there's probably a bunch of skits about, you know, reparations, African Americans getting money solely because they are African Americans. It's gonna happen. I think it's gonna happen. That's crazy.